Welcome to everybody. The JuST Institute is very happy to welcome you to this exciting panel, where we will speak about some of the key elements to support and enable smallholder farmer and rural women to adapt to climate change and to preserve biodiversity. We will explore different roles thanks to different stakeholder participants in terms of commercial banking sector and impact investor with Alan Levy from the BNP Paribas, the use of data for regenerative agriculture with Rim Terawi from ARIA, and as well the perspective of microfinance institution Banco da Família in Brazil with Isabel Baggio. The JuST Institute as well will give its perspective in terms of instruments as capacity building and certification to enable improvement of traceability and capacity into the sector to cope with climate change and to enable investment with impact at the level of smallholder farmers and rural women. Welcome. I hope you will enjoy the panel.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alain Lévy. I'm in charge for BNP Paribas to develop the relationship with microfinance institution and also with institution promoting inclusive finance specifically in Americas and also in Asia. BNP Paribas has a long story with microfinance and a long commitment because we are committed in the microfinance industry for more than 30 years now. And we are very proud of this commitment. And we made some public release about this commitment, and especially about the social performance, which matters a lot for us. And that is why also I'm not belonging to a business line traditional. I'm part of engagement team in BNP Paribas. I'm part of a kind of CSR. And so for us, it's very important to be present in microfinance, to give back and to get some social performance. So that is why we had some KPIs, and we made also a report on the social performance of our investees, and we disclose many KPIs on that. And we were thinking, what could be the next step for us? What could be the challenge now to try to make a new step regarding microfinance? And we said, we're thinking that, okay, it's good to have a social performance, but also we would like to have maybe to open more the microfinance institution to other topic like protection of biodiversity, like climate resilience, like smart agriculture, for instance. And it was, and it's very consistent because, you know, in the microfinance, in the micro borrower, you have many smallholders, and they are a big part of the production of agriculture. So there is something to do on this field. And so we are trying to think all we can do. We're starting to learn. We made some experiment like the MEBA project also. And finally, we had a great opportunity. We were co-funding JuST Institute. JuST Institute is an association to promote the framework for the protection of biodiversity and climate resilience for smallholders. So this is something that can be very useful for the microfinance world because we didn't have that kind of tool. And so in the framework of the global partnership between BNP Paribas and JuST Institute, we said, okay, let's try to create a SLL for microfinance. What is a SLL? It's a sustainability linked loan. So globally, the mechanism is you have some KPIs, and with if the institution meet the KPI, they get a benefit like a decrease in interest rate. Here, in the case for the microfinance institution, we choose Banco da Família in Brazil to make that premiere, because it doesn't exist in the world to have some SLL in the microfinance space. And regarding Banco da Família, we define some KPIs, so very environmental KPI and also linked to some social issue. So about the KPI were defined about wash product, about solar energy, about also green portfolio. And if the institution reach this KPI, they will benefit from some technical assistance. And the technical assistance is very useful because it can help the microfinance institution to improve its knowledge about biodiversity and to improve its processes about biodiversity and climate resilience, and also to help the MFI also to face with some capacity building issues. So this is globally what we are doing regarding the SLL opportunity, and we call that now for the microfinance the SLIF. This is Sustainable Link Inclusive Funding. This opportunity will, we hope that it will enable us to open more the microfinance world to the environmental issue, to the protection of biodiversity. We want to foster this trend, and so we are very happy to do that also with Banco da Famiglia, but also with other MFI in France and Italy.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to participate to this panel. I am Rim Teraoui. I am the founder and CEO of Ariane. It's a mission-driven startup that delivers data and advisory support to environmental and social projects in developing countries. Our areas of focus include sustainable agriculture, and we are currently developing a global technology platform to support the end-to-end implementation of transition programs toward regenerative agriculture. Now, when it comes to collecting and managing data on the impact on climate and biodiversity of smallholders' activities, I do see several challenges. The first one is that there is presently no single normalized or at least widely accepted methodology or indicator to measure those impacts. And this is even more true when it comes to biodiversity, because there is an inherent methodological complexity that adds to the lack of agreed open standards. The second problem is that there is limited scientific data from which we can extrapolate to say that limiting chemical entrant or implementing no-till or culture rotation is impacting climate by X and biodiversity by Y. And this is because regenerative farming is not an exact science. In fact, impacts are highly contextual, and hence data must be collected and put into perspective versus each and every context. The third point is that I think there is an important gap between the high-level impact data that investor or agri-food corporate or public organization need to either comply with regulatory disclosure or to steer their investment portfolio, and the much more granular and operational data that farmers need for their day-to-day operations. Because farmers, they do not care about high-level impact. What they care about is what's happening on their plot, about how the practices they are implementing are affecting the health of their soil, are affecting the water cycle and their resilience to drought, are affecting the productivity of their lands. So it's very important to bridge this gap and to build a data supply chain that consistently serves those two types of need. And right now we see a lot of data providers focusing on providing data useful to comply with regulations. I do believe that to achieve a just transition, it's very important to empower farmers, and in particular smallholders, with data that allow them to optimize their practices, that provide them with actionable insight, that make them able to demonstrate how they are positively contributing to climate and biodiversity, but also how much they are becoming more resilient to climate change, to water scarcity, and hence to place them in a much stronger position to negotiate a fair risk sharing and a fair value sharing with their value chain. And you know, the key success factor for a platform is above all to be fit for purpose. So to elaborate slightly more, I can share with you the main principles that have been driving the development of our UPIA platform. First of all, as I mentioned, it's about purpose. So our core mission is to impulse a just transition towards sustainable agricultural practices. So we do provide the necessary data for investor, for program sponsor to comply with the regulation or to steer the progress and the outcomes. We also provide data to farmers to monetize their efforts through carbon certification or environmental certification. But this is only a side product in a platform that remains essentially farmer-centric and focusing on the operational aspects of the transition. Access to inclusive financing solutions, access to know-how, to peer-to-peer learning, access to adapted equipment and technical assistance, access to markets. And to support that, we have developed a data model that connects the dots between very operational and granular field-specific data on one hand, and high-level measurement of impact on climate, biodiversity, and socioeconomic conditions on the other hand. The second principle is to leave a lot of freedom and flexibility to farmers versus the metrics and the KPI that are requested by investor or by the value chain. What it means concretely is that our framework is outcome-based rather than practice-based. As I mentioned earlier, regenerative farming is highly contextual and not at all an exact science. So it will be pretty ineffective and even counterproductive to try to standardize the path. The only thing that must be harmonized is the measurement of the outcome. The third principle is to strike a fair balance between digital and fieldwork. First of all, because there are several limitations related to digital data collection. For instance, satellites are limited by their spatial resolution, plus they are pretty ineffective for very small plots, hence for smallholders. And second, and I would say even more importantly, because it's not just about verification, it's also about supporting farmers on the ground. And I would conclude with a fourth principle, which is about local adaptation and user experience. One of the key objectives of our platform is to connect farmers to their ecosystems. So their onboarding must be as simple as possible. It must be adapted to local context, to local culture, to local language. It must take into account local issues like problems related to land tenure and so on. And this is why we work in very close cooperation with a network of local partners to whom we operate a real technology transfer. So we pioneer not only a just transition, but also an inclusive transition. That's it for me.
Olá a todos, é um prazer estar aqui desde o Brasil para contar a nossa experiência, a experiência do Banco da Família, enquanto instituição de microfinanceiras. O Banco da Família está no sul do Brasil, como disse, estamos operando com microfinance desde 25 anos, já emprestamos em torno de 500 milhões de dólares, a nossa equipe é formada de 85% de mulheres, desde a alta administração até os agentes de crédito. Os nossos clientes são, na maioria, mulheres. Nós fizemos, até agora, 400 mil operações de crédito e isso impactou mais ou menos em torno na vida de 2 milhões de pessoas. Nós trabalhamos com vários produtos microfinanceiros, iniciamos operando com microcrédito, crédito para o trabalho, e hoje, a partir de algum tempo que fomos percebendo a necessidade de crédito em termos de gerais das pessoas, nós temos créditos para negócios, temos créditos para a saúde, para a educação, para a moradia, créditos para pequenos produtores rurais, créditos para saneamento, e somos uma organização que sempre pensa e trabalha e atua para dar melhor qualidade de vida das pessoas. E essas pessoas são aquelas pessoas invisíveis, mas que fazem a base da microeconomia e o desenvolvimento de qualquer região. O nosso trabalho também é muito focado em pequenos negócios, de pequenas cidades, de áreas rurais. Essas pessoas têm dificuldade porque têm pouco acesso, até porque estão em lugares muito remotos, e os desafios e as dificuldades são imensas. Essas pessoas precisam de atenção. Elas estão tratando de trabalhar pela sua sobrevivência e nós, como instituição de microfinanças, temos o compromisso de desenvolver as comunidades mais remotas. Também atuamos em regiões onde os índices de desenvolvimento social e humano são baixos. O Brasil é um país bastante desigual e, como temos grandes metrópoles, grandes centros de população, temos pessoas que estão localizadas onde nem rede de internet chega. Então, nós estamos atentos a esses movimentos para que as desigualdades não sejam tão grandes e que causem tanto impacto na vida das pessoas. As taxas de juros que nós cobramos são taxas adequadas para, principalmente, as famílias agricultoras e mulheres. Os nossos agentes de crédito têm uma missão bastante importante, que é levar treinamento para as nossas equipes, claro, mas também e principalmente que eles conheçam bastante profundamente as práticas agrícolas sustentáveis. A expansão dos negócios rurais são, no nosso olhar, algo muito importante. Essas pessoas, se não tiverem condições adequadas de vida, elas irão fazer parte dos grandes conglomerados urbanos e lá, ao invés de terem solucionado seus problemas, eles começam a aumentar os problemas e as diferenças sociais. Então, nós pensamos que é importante reter as pessoas no campo, mas através de uma agricultura sustentável, que eles também tenham retornos sólidos para garantir a sua permanência. E aí uma atenção bastante especial para as mulheres, que são líderes, às vezes, de famílias, e cuidam dos seus filhos, inclusive da educação, mas se elas não tiverem conhecimento de práticas agrícolas que são sustentáveis, essa dificuldade vai se perpetuando de geração em geração. Também temos créditos para saneamento, que também é um ponto bastante complexo nas áreas rurais, porque toda a estrutura rural é problemática e a agricultura também depende do saneamento. São ações que são conectadas e inseparáveis. O nosso crédito de saneamento trabalha com infraestrutura, melhoria de infraestrutura, de água potável, de tratamento de esgoto, de coleta de resíduos. Para quê? Para que a redução dos impactos ambientais seja sentida e percebida. A poluição do solo, a prevenção das doenças nas áreas rurais e até também nas áreas urbanas são também nosso foco bastante importante. Também trabalhamos com financiamento de placas solares, onde buscamos trabalhar ambientalmente e utilizar a melhor forma de energia limpa e renovável. As parcerias estratégicas que nós estamos tratando com o Instituto JuST e o BNP nos dá a oportunidade de fazer com que possamos analisar melhor como as práticas agrícolas são adequadas, se são sustentáveis ou não. E nesse movimento dessa parceria, nós vamos buscar incrementar as soluções sustentáveis na agricultura. Entendemos que as pessoas que estão no campo não têm o conhecimento adequado e, por mais bem intencionados que sejam, as práticas às vezes não são as melhores. E dessa maneira, nós vamos buscar tratar com que eles melhorem as suas práticas e que tornem, além de sustentável, ter um retorno sólido. A missão do Banco da Família vem ao encontro desse projeto. A nossa missão é contribuir com a qualidade de vida, sendo um agente de inclusão, desenvolvimento e transformação social. E todas essas ações nos permitem fazer esforços nesse sentido e cumprir cada vez melhor a nossa missão. Muito obrigada.
Dear everyone, thanks a lot for having me here. I'm very pleased to propose you and to guide you through the perspective of the JuST Institute of how we can contribute together as a sector to enable financing for impact for smallholder farmer and women in rural area to support them to cope with climate change and preserve biodiversity. Before starting, maybe a couple of words on the JuST Institute. The JuST Institute means Just Sustainability Transitions, and we support coalition and building bridges between private and public sector, conventional and inclusive finance, with the scope to mainstream climate change adaptation and biodiversity conservation, as well as inclusion, through the instruments of finance. Launched with the support of the Global Environmental Facility and BNP Paribas, we're joined by various other members from the sectors, like the Frankfurt School Impact Finance, the Fondation Agronomique Agricole, and our scope is to provide into the sector instruments, services, and products that try to fill the gap that is blocking us to massively channel financings to adapt to climate change. What are the blockers? What are the blockers we have been observed? We've been observed some key blockers, among which the lack of insufficient traceability. We don't know exactly where money are going and for which scope, in particular when we go toward the end of the value chain, like smallholder and ecosystems. We've been observing a lack of capacity to absorb financing, and in particular to manage additional risk, like climate risk and biodiversity risk, as well as to identify the solution and technology like nature-based solution that can enable, a more resilient financing and building lasting capacity for smallholder, as well as we've been observing a lack or an insufficient structure for product, financial and non-financial product at the level of financial institution, microfinance institution, and local banks to finance actually this transition, this just transition, and in particular also for investor, being public or private investor that still don't have the products that will enable them to provide adapted instruments to their investees, and of course an important lack in terms of access to information and management of information. Today, I would like to tell you a couple of words about two of the things we do among these set of activities we have to break some of these barriers. I would like to speak about certification and capacity building. Certification is about a product we develop here at the JuST Institute with the aim to support a better traceability and a better transparency. So what do we do with the certification? We basically have two kinds of certification. One, what we call institutional level certification, and one, what we call it portfolio certification. And it consists in the first one consists in the analysis of the policy, the processes, the risk management processes, product and services existing, financial and non-financial, for inclusive finance service provider, to understand their level of capacity to support climate change adaptation for the beneficiary, as well as biodiversity conservation, and to understand the level where we are and what are the possible gaps and activities that can be done to enable this institution to better finance and foster adaptation for smallholder farmers. It's not only analysis, as said, this is certification. It's based on a set of standards into the sector we and jointly develop with the sector's main stakeholder, and will allow us to include this kind of analysis, both at the beginning of each project, as well as to understand how the project is evolving, as well as, of course, enable to link eventually financing for our member with better condition if improvement has been observed during the time. So if the certification improve, together with our member, we're putting in place instruments so that the price as well as the set of technical assistance provided is linked to the improvement of the certification. This is one. The other kind of certification is really to better understand what is in the inside the portfolio of financial institution, in particular the one that are in direct link with smallholder. This is portfolio certification, so we look into what institutions are actually financing, what is in their portfolio. We would like to know how much of their portfolio can and actually contributes to climate change adaptation and biodiversity conservation. So there we analyze the portfolio, we structure it in terms of which kind of solution and technology are actually financed. And then we certified their amount in terms of amount that is dedicated for climate change adaptation, amount is dedicated for biodiversity conservation, and the quality for each tranches. For example, an institution has 10 million in agriculture. We want to know how many of those are for sustainable agriculture and at which quality. This approach has been piloted. It will be piloted together with various stakeholders, among which the JEF and the IFAD, and as well as the Group BNP Paribas, in 3 countries: Colombia, Senegal, and Morocco. In the next couple of years, with a piloting set of up to 15 institutions, and we keep you posted to the result to then mainstream it into the sector, hoping that all sector will be happy and to join us to improve traceability. The hope is that through these 2 instruments, the market, the impact investors, as well as international agencies will have a better clarity of what actually is financed, at which level, what are the gap in capacity, and we can better tailor our intervention as well as link the prices of financing to the improvement of financial institutions to support climate change adaptation and biodiversity conservation for smallholder. The other product we would like to share with you in our approach is capacity building. We have been observed, of course, an important lack of capacity of financial institution when it has to do with assessing, identifying, and then managing the climate risk and the biodiversity risk for the smallholder. It's not very easy to understand which is the level of risk, and in particular, what can be done to reduce this risk. And the other thing we've been observed, of course, it's very difficult to actually understand which one of the activity smallholder are actually doing already, can contribute, it is actually contributing to climate change adaptation and biodiversity conservation. Our training, try to fill this gap, is a training that is composed of a set of modules. We start with an awareness raising level. We then go on a theory level, and then we go to the most interesting part, operational and coaching. Let me go to the operational and coaching. With the operational part, we engage loan officers, as well as management of financially inclusive financial service provider to experiment with concrete tools and smart support, experiment indicators, experiment methodology on their own portfolio, on their own clients, that will allow them to have an analysis of the one they're already doing at the level of client and portfolio with additional element, the element of climate risk, the element of biodiversity risk, the element of verification of nature-based solution and activities and practices. So the participant will be enabled in the use to these tools. We will provide them the tools to use the indicator and to use them on their actual clients. We will then support them into peer learning and expert learning in an ongoing coaching. We will get on set by set, weeks by weeks meetings to interpret together this new view into looking into their portfolio and looking into their actual clients. The hope, already built with extensive experience in the last 10 years, is to foster capacity so that when there will be an intervention in terms of financing and a project, microfinance institutions and local banks already be enabled to understand, okay, what's the level of climate risk of my client, or how can I measure it? What are the possible instruments and activities that can reduce this risk, can actually support the smallholder for better production, more sustainable production, preserving ecosystem. So this in a nutshell, the things that we are on top of in the JuST Institute in terms of certification and ongoing training. We will have a launch of these two, the new version of these two products in the next couple of months, to then hope to provide it to the sector on an ongoing basis for at least a couple of years to go. both within the project we manage, but also as a standalone offer for the sector. Everyone that is interested and would like to join and would like to take advantage of this product for the overall sector, for the greater good of our own portfolio of institutions, of course, is welcome to reach us. We are a non-for-profit organization with the scope to support any stakeholder to develop the sector for inclusive climate change adaptation and biodiversity conservation finance. Thanks a lot.